Before I get up?
He's trying to. There you go.
Okay, I call this regular City Council meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Vice Mayor Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Biendo.
Here.
Councilmember Villanueva.
Here.
Councilmember Alton. Councilmember Woodard. Councilmember Williams.
Here.
And then Mayor Truitt's out this evening.
Mayor Truitt is ill this evening, and I wish him a speedy recovery. We need him here. Okay? Will all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with current events. Let's start with Councilmember Biendo.
Current events. Just a couple of quick items. I attended the retirement reception for Assistant Chief Kevin Poole, and then later the promotion ceremony for Sergeant Tim Clarkowski, and it's always a joy. Particularly the latter was they had a really nice promotion activity for him, and it's always nice to see the bond that exists between those public safety people, our fire and police officers. Also, just since the last meeting, along with Councilman Alton, we were meeting with Sun City Grand people, met this morning with Arizona Traditions people. I've met with two representatives from Saguaro View, and then I'm going to Happy Trails in October. And I mention those because it's interesting as one goes from area to area. There's some common concerns, some common issues, yet there are distinct differences that one will find in each of those areas. So it's always great to go out and meet all the citizens and find out what's on their minds. That's all.
Great. Councilmember Villanueva.
Yeah, I attended the League of Cities in Tucson last week and attended several workshops, so well informed. I think one of the biggest things and benefit is the networking that you get with all the rest of the elected officials. Also attended the Quality of Life Commission. They had a great presentation on some of the grants, like completing the sidewalks in the OTS up in the northern part, and also attended the Historic Society meeting last night, and Skip was there. So, you know, it's really a nice meeting. They had about 20 chairs in an oval setting, and after they took care of business, we just sat around and talked about some of the things that happened and surprised over the years, and some of the information that Sherry had there, and some of the members there. So it was great and peaceful, and enjoyed it. And of course, all of us attended the 9/11 memorial ceremony, and they did a fantastic job on that. And congratulations for setting that up. That's it.
Councilmember Alton.
Yeah, thank you. I had my my iPad worked on prior to the workshop tonight because I wasn't getting any emails, and now I can't even see my calendar. So everything that these two have said before, I attended, with the exception of the Historical Society. I did attend the League of Cities and Towns conference, and I went a day early, only to go to a leadership workshop that was just outstanding. And what they were really emphasizing is to bring about discussions with our citizens, and how to bring that to fruition. And that is, we're really interested in hearing from you, but not necessarily directing your conversation. And I propose going into the future is that we set up meetings that we just are there, a quorum is there, and we just listen. And we just listen to small groups, big groups, whatever. Because that's the only way we're going to get an input other than our coffees and so forth. And those are pretty much of the same individuals. But we really do want to hear from each one of you, either collectively or singly, in that it would be by email or phone call or whatever. It's terrific. It was very important for me, and I think that it would be very important to the council as well as the city staff. Chris Hillman received my packet of that day, and I think we might bring something to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodard.
I also attended the retirement for Kevin Poole. It was quite an interesting and enjoyable time with a lot of good humor. Hate to lose him. He's been here a lot longer than I have, but he was instrumental and in a leadership position the whole time that I've been in the city of Surprise. So I will miss seeing his face around the city. I also went to the 9/11 memorial service on Sunday, and I would like to apologize to some of to the residents of District 3 and District 5. We were scheduled to have a coffee last week, and it didn't occur. Let's just put it that way. And we have rescheduled that coffee for this Saturday from roughly 9 a.m. to 11:30. It's in a room which is right behind us here. And John will be there, John and I will be there, and welcome your input, the things that are concerning you, whether it be redistricting, open meeting law, it doesn't matter. We're open to anything that is of interest to you and that you have questions on. I also attended with Councilman Alton and Councilman Biondo the District 1 meeting this morning at Arizona Traditions, and it is interesting. Both Jim and Richard, they work with basically senior communities. Gated communities is one of them, while I work with the south of Bell Road and a lot of family communities. But they have some different questions, but it's amazing how similar we are in some ways. So it was interesting. I've also attended Kingswood Park HOA a couple of weeks ago. I can't tell you exactly because of my crazy calendar, Richard. Yeah, it went down today also. So yeah, I know. In case you're wondering what's going on up here, we're doing a pilot program with iPads, and I'll just leave it at that. It's a pilot program, and I'm grateful that it's pilot. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A couple things that went on. I'll make this pretty brief. Resolutions Committee. I was appointed by the mayor at the League of Cities Conference, League of Towns and Cities, to attend the resolutions. In 4 years that I've been on that committee, this was the longest one. It was a 4-hour discussion, and I've got a few kind of bullet points I got to hit on tonight later on, and I'm going to issue a kind of a formal summary for the council and the mayor and senior staff to kind of go through, because there was a lot discussed. I don't know how much was accomplished, but there's a lot discussed, and I want to make sure that we're aware of all those discussions. Whistleblower ordinance, and myself, Vice Mayor Hall, and Councilmember Woodard met with senior staff. We're discussing multiple options, and we're going to vet through that, and it's kind of our ordinance steering committee has kind of initiated that process, and we should have something here within the next few months to kind of put on the books, and really the intent there is to improve the level of trust was talked about internally and externally, and we're really going to involve city staff at the lowest level to kind of say their part in this whole process. So it was a great discussion that we had on that, and that's moving forward. And then finally, I'll just Two more things. One, I share the sentiment to anyone that wanted to come out and have a cup of coffee and talk to us on Saturday. I do apologize, along with Councilmember Woodard. It's been a hectic week. And the last thing is the 9/11 tribute was phenomenal by city staff. Everybody's got a personal connection to that day for one reason or another, and it brought tears to my eyes. My wife teared up, and it was crazy to see some names on that memorial that we have here in City Hall now, in the Civic Center, that you know. And I thank city staff, Chief Frazier, Ken Lynch, Mayor Truitt, Chief White, and I'm sure I'm missing a few people that were very vital to that whole thing, but I was really appreciative. I can't express the appreciation that me and my family both had. So thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, Chris?
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Just a couple of different items. A lot of those same events that I was very fortunate and privileged to attend with each of you. Really enjoyed even meeting today with the residents out in Arizona Tradition. So always look forward to any opportunity to meet with the residents. So please, anytime you need myself or any of the senior staff out there, please let us know. We'd be happy to help you out in any way. We're continuing to work through the prioritization exercises, getting those set up. We'll be bringing those to council, as we talked about 3-4 weeks ago. Looking forward to that. That's the prioritization of all these different aspects. We're sort of beginning the budget process a little early in broad strokes at this point. You're working with the departments right now to do what we're calling a budgeting for outcomes scenario and approach. So I definitely appreciate the senior staff working on that. The other thing that we're working on, especially at a grassroots level here in the city, is creating our values, our mission, and our vision statement. We have employee committees right now working very hard on those. I'm looking forward to getting reports from them. George is helping to spearhead that effort. But just let you know, that is a grassroots effort. That's going to be a collaborative effort between the employees, senior staff, to come with that, and we'll be presenting that to the council later on. So that's about it. Thanks.
We look forward to that. Before I go any further, I want to express condolences on behalf of the city council. Former city council member Danny Arizmendez, his son passed away. I think he was only 33 years old, and we want to express our condolences to Danny. It's got to be a tough time. So anyway, is there anybody that would like to speak on a non-agendized item, Sherry?
Yes, we have Ken Wright.
Good evening, Acting Mayor Hall and City Council people. I want to talk tonight about the response that Mr. Bailey sent to Mr. Barton at the Attorney General's office. And I'm on page 3. I must read a little of this for background. The second item contained in Mr. Vukanovic's complaint is Agenda Item 2, consideration and action to adjourn the special city council meeting and convene to executive session, emphasis, with no description of matters to be considered in violation of ARS. Mr. Bailey says that Mr. Vukanovic's complaint ignores the description of executive session included under that heading, which states, pursuant to City Council may go into executive session with the City Attorney for legal advice on any item listed on the agenda, that being the item regarding the City Manager. What I have to say is something that myself, some council people, some people that used to serve on the Dysher School Board, they were schooled by a member of the Attorney General's office in the appropriate manner to place these items on the agenda. That night there was an item, but this language is used by the city when there are 15 items on an agenda. The item is never identified 1, 2, 3, 14, 15. It's just the same general language. And like I said, this has been gone over. I talked 3 or 4 meetings ago about meeting with the mayor. This is one of the highlight subjects. I met with him, he got back with me and told me that Mr. Bailey had said that there were no errors going on. This was only one of them that was going on. There's other things that I mentioned that I'll be bringing up later. And so I have to assume by listening to that then that Mr. Bailey has been the determining factor, that no one else has instructed him to use this language on the agenda. Going down to the last paragraph on this, in light of the confusion relative to March 29th meeting, the city considers this an opportunity to critically analyze the manner in which executive sessions are described on the agenda to assure the public is better informed about the purpose of such sessions, an acknowledgement that we need to do something. In doing so, the city intends to hold a workshop to discuss the merits of the Arizona open meeting law. So now we're questioning whether the open meeting law in Arizona has any merits or not. But we're going to talk about that. So there's also supposed to be a 30-minute workshop. Many of you were on the council in 2008 when the city held a workshop on the open meeting law at direction of the Attorney General's office. I believe the presenter in those sessions were Mr. Bailey. I'm suggesting tonight that Mr. Bailey not be the spokesperson in how these meetings are supposed to be held. As a matter of fact, someone from the Attorney General's office should be brought in to talk about that. Mr. Bailey should be a student, not an instructor. Let's get this thing straight. It's been hanging out for years and years. Someone should be brought in from the Attorney General's office. There should be no grace period. Let's do it now. Let's get it right. Stop getting the names and the articles in the paper about how ineffective the council is because they won't follow the law.
That is all, Vice Mayor.
That all? Okay. Next is the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to remove something from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion, please? To approve consent?
Second?
Please cast your vote.
Unanimous yes vote, Vice Mayor.
Okay. We'll go to item number 9. Could you please read the item, please?
Thank you. This is consideration and action on the agreement with Waste Management Recycle America for the First Amendment to Recycling Services Agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're asking for approval of amendment to our waste management agreement regarding recycling. But I'd like to just recap, primarily for the benefit of the audience that may not have heard the presentation last week. I want to give you the highlights of the changes to our recycling program, our curbside recycling program. With this change, the residents of Surprise will be able to recycle glass. Prior to this, glass has been one of the prohibited, easy for me to say, prohibited items of our waste stream. In addition, there'll be additional plastic. 1 through 7 has been kind of selective. Now it's open to any plastics with those numbers on the containers. The residents will see no changes in our curbside service other than these commodities will be accepted now. What it means to the city in terms of our general operations is that there'll be a slight increase in revenues, both for the sale of the glass, that is, we'll receive additional funding for that, as well as the avoided landfill costs. So we hope to see in the area about between $50,000 and $70,000 of additional revenue as a net result. The residents will also see our education program that we've already started, but it'll really become kicked into full gear beginning tomorrow, pending adoption of this resolution. Community resource, the Communications Department has put together a press release and also information to go on our website. In addition, the progress will be coming out to all residents beginning the first week in October. And this will describe, what the changes in the system are, and what types of products can be accepted now. Finally, the start date, the official start date is September 26th. That will be the first date that the program will commence. But I think there'll be any glass that will be put out beginning next week will also be collected too. So with that, I end my presentation, ask for your approval and adoption of this resolution to amend the contract, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Beckley.
Here we go. Councilmember Alt.
Thank you. Mr. Beckley, there's no cost to the city for this amendment of this agreement.
No, there's no change in the contract price. There is a slight extension of contract, but that's the only change.
Can you share with me whether or not Parks and Son participates in this? I know they have a collection program that happens in certain segments of the city, but can you share with me whether or not they're going to be able to recycle glass as well?
They have been.
Okay.
I'm not aware of...
Yeah, they've been recycling glass for about 8 months.
And those containers that are all over the city for recycling, that will go in also into the coffers of what we take to waste management?
That's correct. Any of the satellite stations will be included in that.
Good. Thank you.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
On the financial impact statement, I just want to clarify something. It looks to me like, okay, our revenues will increase by $35,000 and our cost will decrease by $35,000. So overall, we should see an increase of available cash of about $65,000. Would that be correct?
That's according to the estimates that we have. Those are the numbers that we've used in this presentation. You're correct.
And that is just in our recycling program?
Yes. We have recycling, we have bulk trash, we have trash removal. All of it comprise the operations in our sanitation fund. So it all goes into that one enterprise fund.
Okay. But the pickup in those blue containers, that revenue for doing that is going to increase by $65,000 annually, over and above whatever we're receiving now.
Correct.
Should. That's fantastic. Yeah. We need it. We need it all.
Any other questions? What's the commencement date, Bob?
September 26th is the...
I move to approve the First Amendment to Recycle Services Agreement.
Second. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item? No? Seeing no one? We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Sorry about that. 6 yes vote.
Okay. Very good. Item number 10.
Vice Mayor, would you like me to do my elections report now or wait till the end of the meeting?
The what?
My elections report. Do you want me to do that now or wait?
Elections report.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Sherry.
That's okay. Well, we are going to have a general election, as everyone is aware. It's a runoff for the positions of mayor, Districts 2 and Districts 3. And I wanted to give a report tonight because we have a candidates forum coming up sponsored by the League of Women Voters, and that's going to take place on September 21st at 7 p.m. here at City Hall. It's open to the public. And voter registration for the November 8th general election is Monday, October 10th. And, of course, we're ballot by mail. That means every registered voter will receive a ballot. They'll be mailed out on October 6th. And City Hall will be the only replacement ballot location. and we're open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and on November 8th, Election Day, we'll be open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. for last-minute voters that need to have a ballot replacement. And if you're going to be out of town, there is a process that you have to follow to be able to get a ballot forwarded to another location, out-of-town location. So the information is located on our website, and you can just go to surpriseaz.gov to the city clerk section. Thank you.
Now, Sherry, did I understand that correctly, that the county gave you some feedback on the results won't be till the following Friday after the Tuesday election?
We received our results early at the primary because we were the only city that was having an election. But for the November election, there's 25 jurisdictions that'll be having an election. So we're not going to receive our results quite as quickly. So we have to expect at least 8:30 or 9.
But of the same day?
On the same day, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Now, that's the unofficial results. So that'll just be the preliminary. Hopefully by Friday, we'll receive the final results.
Oh,
all right.
Thank you.
Could you please read, thank you very much, Sherry. Could you
You're
please
welcome.
read item number 10?
Discussion and overview of the 2011 League of Cities and Towns Resolution Committee meeting.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's kind of what I allude to in the current events. Mayor Truitt has placed me on the Resolutions Committee the past 4 years. And essentially, for those folks that don't know, the Resolutions Committee meets annually at the League of Cities Conference, and there's a representative from each city. We discuss relevant issues to the city and prioritize those issues, and then with that prioritization, the League of Cities then lobbies those issues and endorses those issues and lobbies those to our state representatives. Each year, there's a number of things that are repeated in that process, and it all goes back to those same things that our Intergov has presented to us in the past in terms of local control, maintaining local control, ensuring that the state doesn't kind of dip their hands into our pot. And that's no different this year. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of these. And like I said in the current events, I'll shoot out a kind of a more formal summary to the council and management and our department directors. One of the things that took up probably the most time, the most discussion, was an interesting item in terms of public records requests, which is it was quite an interesting discussion in terms of what it does to smaller cities. It was a smaller city issue. It was turned down, but smaller cities were arguing that it becomes so arduous a process when you have 4 or 5 staff members versus a city of Surprise, and having to constantly respond. They wanted to kind of articulate in more specific terms what those record requests were. It was not well received or endorsed by most cities, most of the larger cities. So that was turned down. One of the things that Surprises has been involved in supporting with the city of Flagstaff, Sedona, the past few years is a formation of a renewable energy district. It was something that former Republican senator state senator from Prescott area, Lucy Mason, had kind of presented and brought forward, and it never got legs in the State House. It's considered a critical need, and what that does is it provides cities a mechanism to promote renewable energy sources beyond solar, but that was the main drive of that, and that was considered a critical need, which is kind of the second, right in the middle between endorsing it, critical need, and then throwing it completely out the window. The items that were approved that were irrelevant to Surprise was the HERF fund and maintaining our control over the HERF fund, ensuring that essentially that the state stays away from that revenue source and how important that revenue source is to us. County islands, it's a huge issue for us. Having the ability, based on need, to more readily annex in these county islands into the cities to make infrastructural improvements that are necessary. Very relevant to Surprise. Tattoo parlors, interesting enough, had some discussion. More restrictions on tattoo parlors in terms of where those locations would be. Graffiti. Graffiti was an issue brought forward by the city of Yuma. They want to see criminal ramifications and complete City Attorney, what word am I looking for? Restitution to cities HOAs, whomever the victim is when that occurs. And that was carefully discussed, and I was surprised how many lawyers are in elected positions, but that was carefully discussed and crafted, but it was endorsed, and that's something that it pops up. It's an albatross to HOAs in a lot of ways, and those are just some of the basic highlights. There wasn't all that much that in terms of relevance to surprise, but I wanted to kind of touch on some of those for council, and like I said, I'll bring forward a summary for everyone.
John, was compact fees discussed at all by some of the cities?
I'm sorry?
Compact fees.
Not that I am aware of. No, that didn't come up.
It didn't come up at all? I'm surprised that the west side didn't bring it up. Yeah. Hey, thank you.
Good job. Good job. Thanks a lot for doing that for the city. So, next item is
Number 11.
11.
Consideration and action to modify the existing 2 public tennis courts located at Surprise Community Park into 8 permanent pickleball courts in the amount not to exceed $55,000.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and members of the council. Several months ago, we attended a meeting with City Manager Hillman, and he asked us to look at options with respect to a request from the pickleball community. The CRS staff did their diligence working with vendors that we have utilized to resurface our courts over the past couple of years at the tennis center. And we went out and received quotes, and about 30 days ago we came back to the council per the city manager's request to look at options that would deliver permanent pickleball courts to the city of Surprise for various reasons. One, the pickleball courts were amenity that the community was asking for. But secondly, it was a common belief that pickleball has a potential to have an impact on our sports tourism opportunities in the city of Surprise. So tonight we're here to ask you to pass a resolution authorizing budget authority to build 8 permanent pickleball facilities, courts at the permanent tennis courts, the 2 tennis courts at the community park. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Villanueva, do you have a question?
No
question.
From
Okay.
last time.
Councilmember Woodard.
Yes. I have a number of things. Mark, on August 16th, this came before the council, and we were talking at that time, I'll read from the background on that the there were options 1, 2, 3 were discussed at the CRS Advisory Board meeting on July 26th, and the CRS Advisory Board endorsed option number 1, projected at a cost of $20,000 to $30,000. And I recall from the conversation, and I believe if we looked at the minutes of August 16th, that we were talking $10,000 to $20,000 for pickleball courts on the existing tennis courts. So I'm somewhat surprised when I look at the agenda item now and find that we're up to $55,000. So that's one point. There was options 1, 2, 3, and 4 were discussed. I'm reading again from the minutes or from the presentation of August 16th. And the CRS Advisory Board selected option 1. CRS staff met several days after the meeting with the Surprise Pickleball Association, and an option 4 was discussed at projected costs estimated at $46,000. 4 options will be presented for council discussion. So in essence, the CRS board approved estimated cost of $20,000, but now we're coming in at $46,000, and I'm only assuming, because I don't have anything else, that the CRS Advisory Board has not reviewed option number 4. Would that be correct?
That'd be correct, Mr. Woodard. Respectfully, just articulate that the CRS Advisory Board is a recommendation body, and staff is not, and I don't mean this with disrespect, but is not held to what the recommendation could be. As a director of the department, I did talk to the chairman of the CRS department, CRS board, and we looked at an opportunity here to do something right, not to Band-Aid it. And so we brought it back to you 4 weeks ago to this date. We did discuss options 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we made the comment that staff was recommending option 4.
Okay. And at that time, we also had if I'm not mistaken, we had a statement, I'll call it a statement, not necessarily a commitment, that the Pickleball Association, Surprise Pickleball Association, had, and I can't say committed either because they didn't have the money to commit, but they...
Pledges.
Pardon?
Pledged.
Thank you. That they pledged up to $25,000 for the pickleball courts. So if we're at $45,000 and they come up with $25,000, okay, then we're back to our $20,000 figure as a cost to the city. And I don't have, that I could perhaps deal with. However, a pledge isn't money in the bank. And what we're being asked to do tonight, Mark, is to commit to $55,000 with the hope that we'll get some back from the Surprise Pickleball Association. Not too many months ago, or I guess it was more, maybe a couple of years ago, we did a similar project with an organization in town where we fronted the money and we were going to get reimbursed, and I believe we're still waiting to get reimbursed for that. We have received some payments, but we have not been totally reimbursed after several years. So I have some hesitation on that. I have hesitation on spending $55,000, which will really be out of our capacity. At the end of our budgeting period, we looked and we said we had a $1.5 million in capacity. And so far, we have committed $162,000 for glass blocks on the 303, $40,000 for the Pat Tillman problem up there with some drainage, another $10,000 for a water consultant in relation to the Arizona American water rates, and now we're being asked for another $55,000. That's a little over $250,000 out of our capacity of 1.5. This council, when we were working on budgets, and we were talking at the end of the year when we said that we only had $1.5 million capacity, we said that we had to look very closely at what we spent our money for. That we had to service needs, not necessarily wants. And I think everybody can pretty well relate in our personal life as things get tight. There's a lot of people out of work right now, and they're not looking at wants. They're looking at needs and trying to get by. And I think our city, we have to do the same thing. We have a strategic plan. We have certain goals that we want to reach, but we haven't prioritized them. We're just, a thing comes up and we go for it. Because yes, the citizens want it, but the citizens, there's other things the citizens want too. They want to make sure that the streets don't have potholes. They want to make sure that we have street lights where we need them. There's a lot of services that we need to do and we need to be careful of, and I am concerned about stripping out our capacity for pickleball court. I have nothing against pickleball courts, mind you. I was talking to some people today, and hey, it's a good project. It's a good thing for people to do. It's easier on the hips, especially if you're a senior citizen like I am. It's easier on the hips, it's easier on the knees. But we also have to make it easier on the pocketbook. That's where I'm headed. So I guess with that, I've said what I have to say.
Councilmember Williams. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, I'm not questioning the merit of pickleball. And in fact, it's a fun sport. I'll just be consistent in terms of what I said at the workshop. I would like to have that. I would like to kind of put this off and have that prioritization workshop that our city manager's talking about to reprioritize those funds. I just, and you brought up glass blocks. I should have known that, by the way, Mike. But I just want to have that discussion first, and then see where this falls into the queue. And we certainly want to advocate for these residents, but at this point in time, I want to have that discussion first. Seems like a little bit of cart before the horse.
Councilmember Alton.
Yes, thank you. I'm surprised that Norm's not here tonight. Or is he? I haven't seen him. Okay. When it was presented to us at a workshop, it was presented in such a way that there was going to be, or needed to be, a mechanism in place in which to pay the city. And pledges are great. Pledges don't always come through. And I know that there is some possibility of some statewide events and possibly even some national events, and I admire that that capability is there. That being said, I am all for this if it is in fact paid by the users of the courts over a period of time. I understood that there was $10,000 in pledges, but actual money received was like $2,900, if I remember right. That's a far cry to the $55,000. This is a special use, whereas right now we have existing tennis courts that have tape in place, I believe it's still there, that made it a secondary source of pickleball. And the tennis courts are being used, and I don't know if there was going to be an exclusive agreement with the Pickleball Association as to the exclusivity of these courts. So there's a lot of things to be hashed out. And I'm not one that's saying, let's remove it, let's not say no. You most likely will get a no vote from me tonight. However, it could still be open, and that is to come up with a mechanism in a 2 or 3 year period that the city will get paid back, and a guaranteed mechanism, line of credit, somebody's guarantee, whatever, that this will in fact be paid back to the city. Without that, I don't see that we could take anything to the bank as far as repayment. Especially with the pledges, and we're so far away from the completion or the dollar amount that's going to be necessary to complete the project. So, we can reopen it at any time, but we have got to come up with some language, and there's no language in this proposal as to how the city is going to get paid back. And again, it's such a small usage group of 118,000 people that live in our city. There are roads that need to be repaired, and there is deficiencies with the split roads or the partial roads. 2 lanes going down to 1 lane, going back to 2 lanes, and so forth. There is a lot of, I believe, more important items. But bring it back, and let's talk about how it to be paid back and what kind of a mechanism would be put in place in order to accomplish that.
Councilman Biondo.
I have some of the same concerns that have been expressed, particularly what Councilman Williams was expressing. It's always so tempting when one sees a pot of money there and you think, well, let's just tap into that fund source because it happens to be there. But I get a bit uncomfortable when we deal with individual items this way, rather than looking at a list of prioritized items. That would make a lot more sense to me. I'm sure it's a deserving project, but I hate to see it in isolation this way, particularly out of this particular fund. So I'm very hesitant at this point to go forward with it.
Councilman Villanueva.
Yes, I echo Richard's sentiments on that. If we can leave it open where we can bring it back and you can figure a way to fund this issue, I think it'll be okay. So I would vote no at this time, but with the difference saying that we can bring it back at any time.
Okay. Well, I've just got a couple of comments. One is our strategic plan here. Worked a long time on it. One of the pillars is tourism. This addresses sports tourism. It's a very small step. We don't have a lot of money as a city to do anything very large. But this is a very small step to create some more sports tourism. And when we get sports tourism in this town, guess what happens? People stay overnight. They pay bed tax back to the city. They eat in our restaurants, etc. And I think this is a very worthwhile project. I share some of the concerns that the way this was positioned in the workshop was that it was a public-private partnership. It wasn't positioned as a total reimbursement to the city. Norm made the comment that he had $10,000, well, about $7,000 pledged and about $3,000 in cash. And he thought he could get that number to $20,000. And in the president of the Pickleball Association says, we know the cost to convert the courts came back at a higher price than we were hoping for. We will be continuing our fundraising after approval as much as we can help to offset the cost and show that we're truly committed to this endeavor. I think I share Councilman Alton's view that I would like to see that more in a concrete agreement so that we know that we're going to get $20,000 back. But I think overall, I think if we work this out, I think there's a way to get this done. And I know the pickleball players have been trying to get this done for a long, long time. And I think it's about, I think we need to work with them. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'd like to hear from the public. Is anybody here to speak on
Yes, we
behalf?
have two speakers. The first one's Justin Robret, I believe. Would you like to speak? Okay, then we have Steve Wong.
Hi, my name is Steve Wong. Thanks for your time. I'm new to Surprise. I'm a local business owner. I teach pickleball. I love pickleball. I share the same passion as all those people back there, with in addition to thousands more. And it's great to hear how you guys talked about how you met with the public in different communities. We do that all the time, but we don't have public pickleball courts where we can play that are safe, where everybody can congregate. So the thing about pickleball is it's a very social game. It's a very athletic game, of course, but it's great because it's cross-generational, and you get to know one another. You get to learn from each other's experiences. So today I shared the court with one of the guys, Rich, and he's 69, and I'm 33. I mean, and we're sharing the court. We're talking to each other. We're getting to know each other. So you guys are talking about prioritizing what's important for the city. This is definitely important for the city because, yes, there's roads and everything else that we have to fund, but you're forgetting the human aspect, the human and emotional aspect where people want to get together and not worry about the harsh things of life, where they're just worried about paying the bills. I taught a family how to play pickleball. Me, myself, and Gigi back there taught a family how to play pickleball. A grandfather, a son, and a mother and father. And they had the time of their life. So that's what you guys are missing. You guys are talking about, let's bring it back to the table, we'll reconsider it. We've been after this for 10 years, as Joe mentioned, and a lot of people are losing faith in the city. A lot of people really want to see this happening. People from Happy Trails, Traditions, all of these great places and all these great people. Well, I can't play with those people on a regular basis because they have their private pickleball courts. Now imagine the growth that you'll see by just taking a chance in the city and the people there. It's at a great spot. The 2 tennis courts right now draw attention. We bring lots of families all the way down. My own kids play there, and they're 5 and 7. And now I've been approached by a couple of families to ask me if I can coach their kids. Well, the conditions aren't great. I mean, Mark and his staff have done a great job keeping up with the temporary situation, but it's far from ideal. And when we originally looked into quotes and stuff, it wasn't as high as $55,000. But I want to share with you that we are a dedicated bunch of people, and a bunch of people that is, teetering between having faith and losing the faith with the city. And I think it's time for you guys to take action, because if we keep on delaying it and delaying it, nobody's going to believe you. And with all due respect, I love Surprise. I moved to Surprise from Washington State because of the growth of pickleball. It's a great spot for pickleball. I've contributed to the economy by buying 2 houses here myself. I have a local business. I love the sport, and I love to talk with everybody that I meet. And this collaboration between Mark, Norm, myself, we're working together, but the problem is there's hurdles. We keep on getting delayed. I've made this a national event. I've gone to Minnesota, I've gone to Washington, I've gone to Florida. I've taught lessons. All that money has been going to the Surprise Pickleball Association, and we have $10,000 in pledges. And we're going to get a lot more once people believe that you guys are going to say approved. If you guys say approved, I guarantee that we're going to come up with more funds. We don't necessarily promise to come up with $55,000, or nor do we need to. We can scale some things back. We understand the circumstances, but we're tired of being delayed and delayed. With all due respect, I think this is a great city, but you need to take a chance, like the Vice Mayor mentioned. This is a great opportunity, and I'm actually a manufacturer of pickleball equipment, and it's growing all over the U.S. And it's amazing and astonishing the growth that it's seen, but it can really grow from here on. Just take a chance.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Justin, are you wanting to speak? Okay, that's all, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Well, we've heard from staff and we've heard from the public. Can I hear a motion?
Before we
Right. I personally feel that staff needs to bring it back. And they've heard from us tonight. And if there's some wording in there that can guarantee the payment over a period of time by working with the Pickleball Association, so be it. And you're wide open to do that.
Vice Mayor, Mr. Hillman, I need some clarification then, because at the workshop, it was not stated that we had to have 100% of a match.
No.
And if what I recall is that Mr. Davis was comfortable with 10,000, believing he could raise more. And I, with respect, I did not get the message that we had to have a 50% match or 75%. So I need direction so that I can work with the community, with the pickleball community, so that we can bring a feasible, viable plan back to you that meets your favor. And
well, Mark, I think what Norm said was that he thought he could raise 20,000. He thought that, and I think that's the number that I looked at. I didn't think we were going to get reimbursed 100%. I thought it was going to be a soft income, quote unquote, based on tourism building, okay, through increased restaurant seats and beds, etc. So that's where I'm coming from. I think 20,000 reimbursement, but I mean, it's up,
Mr. Coronado, have you crunched the numbers as you do with baseball? How many hotel beds or how many hotel rooms that would be taken and so forth over a period of a year? I haven't seen any of those numbers. So it's kind of hard for me to understand a performance statement when the performance statement's not there.
It's an unknown. I mean, the
Okay.
unknown. It's
An unknown.
because we don't have a historical data to give us that number.
Okay. I think then what we need to do is to come up with those numbers and bring them back to us.
Okay.
And that at that time, whether or not it's 100% or 50%, we'll have a better handle on how much it is going to be net after all the tourism activity. What's going to be net to the city of Surprise, what the cost is.
Vice Mayor, if I may, just to help with some clarification, to help Mark's crews, it sounds like there might be two different components, in addition to a third of what Councilmember Alton just said, relative to how you may want to direct staff. One, is there a percentage that the council would like staff to consider that we would then work with the pickleball representatives to try and come up with some solutions relative to a 50% match, whatever it may be, so we can then report back to council to say, here's how we were able to secure X percentage of match. And then would you like that to then come back before the budget discussion that we would be having next year's budget discussion relative to the other component that I'm hearing, if I'm understanding correctly, that you want this pickleball discussion in context of other prioritized items, which would then be part of really that budget process that we'd be going through next year. So I guess maybe there's a timing issue there. Is there a percentage that you're looking for specifically as council that you would want staff to then go back to try and secure and work with the pickleball folks and to come up with solutions and ideas to report back? Those are those couple of components I think we're looking for clarification.
Well, see, here's my problem, is that these guys have been working on this for a long time. Mark knows this. And they've been trying to get something done, and we've been putting them off and putting them off and putting them off. And I'm telling you, it's frustrating. And I think that Norm came here at this workshop, and he laid it out. He said, listen, we will pay for part of the pickleball. We just need this. Then we can build on it. Okay? And now we're telling them we got to push it back to the budget process. That's next year. That's 2013, and that's the problem I have. I would rather have Mark go through the tourism numbers, like Councilman Alton requested, but put together the costs and somewhat of an agreement as to what the pickleball people can contribute. Norm mentioned 20,000. He thought he could get to 20,000. Okay, let's hang our hat on that number, but come back in a relatively short period of time so these people have some direction rather than put them off again. It just, you know what I'm saying, Mark?
Vice Mayor, if I could get some direction, Mr. Hillman, when you make the comment 20,000, listening to Mr. Alton and several of you up on the podium, you're not talking about 20,000 in pledges. You're talking about $20,000 in cash on hand or $20,000 in some type of guarantee, whether it's credit. Someone that will write a note and guarantee it. Is that what you're looking for? You're looking for a guarantee?
Actually, Mr. Coronado, we haven't even said that. Mr. Hall has been saying 20,000.
Right.
Okay, you have not heard that from me.
Okay.
We haven't established that yet. I think what your job is to come back with a performance statement saying what can we expect, given the assumptions, and tell us what the assumptions are, as to what our tourism dollars will be. Okay? That will dictate how much we're going to be able to digest. If we can see the end of the road within a relatively short period of time, 3-4 years, we're almost playing like a banker, okay? And that is, we're funded it up front, but we're looking for a great big participation, not just 30%, okay? So, and that's where I'm coming from. Now, Mr. Hall has given you his thoughts. What I'm saying is we have to have a little bit more private-public partnership rather than the city footing the majority of the bill.
Okay.
Well, I think we're missing something here. It's not just about dollars. That's a part of it, but it's about prioritization. How does this all fit together? Jim brought it up. John brought it up. It's a prioritization. we have a strategic plan that has some really broad terms, broad areas. We haven't prioritized any of those. But when we get around to it, we may not have any money because we have picked this and this and this and this. We selectively pick whatever is the topic of the day. And I'm not picking on your pickleball people. I've been here in this town and coming to these meetings for 10 years. I've heard pickleball for probably 2.5, 3 years, and I know that you've been put off and put off and put off. But I don't know what to tell you right now. I just don't feel we have the money. I'm sorry, but somebody at some time has to say, I don't have the money, and I'm not sure that's the right place to spend what I do have.
I'm not necessarily saying defer this particular item until the next budget cycle. What I'm saying is I'm uncomfortable having to deal with isolated items. So hopefully as we move forward, Chris, exactly what you were saying earlier, so that we don't encounter this kind of isolated situation again, we can look at all the possible projects on the horizon and then begin prioritizing those. In this particular instance, there may be some differences that we have on council of whether that ought to be 20,000 or whether that ought to be the full 55 or whether that ought to be somewhere in between. But I think the thing that troubles me most is the softness, if you will, of the pledge. We're saying, well, we have a pledge for X number of dollars. That's kind of soft. We have a pledge for 10 is kind of soft. Yeah, we can guarantee you 20. Well, that's kind of soft if the 10 is soft. So I'm just saying, I think it's a great project. I, too, really believe in the pickleball activity. It's a wonderful activity, and I've seen it around the community and how much excitement it can generate. But I guess, Mark, what I'm saying is can there be a little more foundation on which we can make the decision? I think it's all the little pieces that have been talked about, the tourism figures perhaps, as well as in conversation with the pickleball people, what can they reasonably assure that can come forward in whatever level of partnership funds.
Councilman Williams.
Excuse me.
Yeah, based on the discussion that's been had, I'd just like to make a motion to continue the item.
Mark, how long do you think it would take you to get this information? 2 or 3 months?
Mayor and council, point of order. There was a motion that was made.
Okay.
Just, sorry.
I'll second.
Councilmember, okay. So there's now a motion and a second on the floor.
Okay, there's a motion and a second.
Could the clerk read back the motion?
The motion was made by John Williams to continue this item and seconded by Jim Biendo.
We did not have a motion prior to that?
No.
Okay.
There's no more discussion, even if the motion's made?
Yeah, we can have some more discussion. Go ahead.
Well, Mayor and council, there's the motion to continue. So if you want to debate whether or not to continue now as opposed to the merits, you can debate whether or not you'd like to continue it.
Whether you can continue or not? Right. Because my question wasn't going to be that with Mark. My question was going to be how long will it take him to get this information?
Mechanics of it, if you...
Forget what I said, Mark. Okay.
We can loosely apply the rules and get through this meeting, or we can strictly apply it and we can be here all night. So I would defer to the council to the extent that it's how long will it take to return. I think that's a fair question to ask of Mr. Coronado, and if you would answer that, Mr. Coronado, and then if the council would take a vote or debate whether or not to continue, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
With respect, I hesitate to give you a timeline. I have a lot of discussion to work with the pickleball community. I'd be remiss if I told you 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. I need to find out their feelings, their comfort zone, their ability to raise funds. I need to look at history with respect to pickleball across the country. It's not as prevalent as tennis and baseball. It's a new sport. It's a new economic development sport. There's a lot of work to be done, And I'm unfortunately not going to be able to give you a timeline, but I'll bring it back as quick as I can to get the information to you.
Right, you can correct me, City Attorney, if you want to, but I just want to make one comment. I think we could have, from Mark's standpoint, I know he's frustrated, because I think we didn't give Mark really good feedback at the workshop. And that's why we have workshops, you guys. We should have given him better directions so that he didn't go through all this, have the pickleball people come, and then we continue it, okay? And I apologize, Mark. We should have given you better feedback at the workshop. There's a motion and a second.
You know, since you did it, I'm going to do it as well. There was a lot of items that were implied, both by the presenter and the council. The specifics were not discussed. And to have an item come before the council without any specifics have already been discussed, that's a risk that we take and the presenter takes. So with respect to the council, I think you heard from us, but we never did get a consensus, and we never got any specificity, okay, in our dialogue. So we apologize for that, but as a staff member, you need to bring out that consensus, bring out that specificity, as has happened in the past. So I call for the question.
We have a motion and a second, so cast your votes for the continuance.
We have 4 yes vote to continue, 2 no votes. That would be Vice Mayor Hall and Councilmember Woodard.
How long will this be continued for? And I guess that's one of my questions. I mean, we could continue it for 2 weeks and bring it back again, or we could continue it for a number of...
Are you asking me?
No, I'm just throwing it out there. I just happen to be looking at you. I guess I'm looking down there at the city manager for some reason.
Mark said he couldn't commit tonight.
Yeah, if I understand the motion correctly, it may take Mark some time to be able to come back to get some of the specifics relative to the impact of the tourism dollars that the addition of these 8 pickleball courts would have on our tourism dollars, to be able to give back that information to the council. And once Mark has an opportunity to do that, he'll report back. I think that the question that Mark is unable to answer at this time is just how long that'll take and to assess that impact. So just as soon as we have it, we'll get it back to you.
Well, he's sitting in his chair.
May the record show, Sherry, that the mayor didn't vote no, that Skip Hall voted no.
I'm sorry, I actually said that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next item is consideration and action on items placed on future agendas. So what, do we have anybody?
Yep.
Yes. Councilman Woodard?
As a result of the action that we just took, I would like to suggest that the city manager try to arrange an opportunity for the council to prioritize some of our strategic plans so that we're not doing what we've been doing. I think that's incorrect and the wrong way to do it.
I'd like to second that and just add that I don't think we need to wait for the budget cycle to have a priority list. I think in terms of the strategic plan, CIP projects, the gap study, I think all that needs to kind of be discussed, and I don't think it's necessarily one project incremental. I think there's going to be silos, and Vice Mayor Hall alluded to the fact that pickleball fits into that tourism silo, but I would like to have that discussion prior to discussing this.
Yeah. So that's one item. The other item that I would like to put on the agenda, future agendas, and I'd like to put this on our next council agenda. We are in a pilot program on these things. And I'd like to have some discussion and see how quickly we can get out of this pilot program and get into something that works. I don't know about the rest of you, but Richard's had problems.
Well,
Vice Mayor's had
I
problems.
think in a pilot program, though, we need to expect that there's going to be some problems, but I don't know that we need to, but we can discuss it, sure.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want
Absolutely.
to discuss it. Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's some problems, and I would like to sit down and,
Okay. Gotcha.
pardon?
Any?
Yes, right here. Right on
Oh,
your
I'm
thing
sorry.
there, yes.
Here,
That's the only
okay, Councilman Alton.
Yes, thank you. Approximately January of '08, January, February, we had a brand-new mayor. We had 3 new council members. And there were some appointments made. And what I am requesting is one particular item, and that is the mayor appointed Steve Betts and Denise Resnick as our representatives on GPAC Executive Board. We have yet to hear from them, and it's been 3 3/4 of a year. We have not received a report back as to what they've done for the city. We have not received anything, any information as to these 2 individuals who live outside the city of Surprise were appointed by the mayor to represent the city of Surprise on the GPEC board. I'd like to have a presentation by them to let us know what they've done for us. Thank you.
Okay, can we work on that, Chris? With the mayor? Okay. Anybody else? Any other? Okay. Are we going to executive session?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'd ask that you take a motion to adjourn into an executive session to discuss a matter. Thank you.
Will we be taking any action when we come back here?
We will not be taking any action other than closing the meeting.
Okay. So can I hear a motion to?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.